Indian weddings, and her work is incredible. Please welcome Rashani Morar from Paheli Weddings.
जट्टां दा वेखो बल्ले बल्ले हो गया मिलियां ने खुशियां हजारां दीवाना पिंड सारे झूम झूम के खो गया.
Hi everybody, I'm Prashani and I'm from Paheli Weddings and Events. My portion of this event will be covering the traditional Indian wedding in South Africa, and I will be sharing a little bit about how the Indian wedding actually ended up here in South Africa, a little bit about the types of weddings that we have, and also how we as the industry can get involved in the wedding. Hopefully this isn't as long as an actual Indian wedding, but I have a lot to cover, so I'm just going to go through it quickly. And I'm going to start off with how did the Indian wedding actually end up here? So back in the 1860s, India had faced a lot of problems. This was economically, socially, also with the drought, many people just hopped onto a ship, came to South Africa initially to work on the sugarcane plantations and then later to do business. And then obviously, I mean, people had to get married, and so the Indian wedding happened, yeah. Now, India is massive, right? So India is, I think, 3 times the size of South Africa. And to keep it simple, we're just going to divide it into the northern part and then the southern part of India. If you're from the north, you would most likely have a Punjabi, Gujarati, Hindi or Sikh wedding. And if you're from the south, you would probably have a Malayalam, Tamil or Telugu wedding. In India, also like in South Africa, people follow different faiths. So there's different religions that people follow. It's Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity. There's such a collection of identities in each region, religion, and language. And it goes all the way down to different caste systems also. And they all play a role in the type of wedding that you would have. And they also determine things like the attire, the food that you would serve at your wedding, the type of music, who walks the bride down the aisle, and even color palettes. So all these layers of identity forms a different format of the ceremony. We know in general that the Indian wedding is just massive and explosive on all levels. And I think this is because there's so many layers of identity within each region. I mean, we're talking like minimum guest count of 350. And then I've been to a wedding where the guest count was 1,500. I'm not even joking. So the 1,500 people wedding is like normal. So the reason for this is purely because of the vibrant celebration of the many layers and the big family and community involvement. Therefore, the format of each wedding is different. So I'm going to get to the wedding week now. There's so many pre-functions and pre-events. I mean, we do hair and makeup more than fashion week sometimes. It's insane at how many pre-functions we have. The wedding week is made up of several different functions, and they all have different meanings, and they fill different roles leading up to and even after the wedding day. They're all family and community involved, like I said, and there's very little need for any external vendors, especially, I mean, including a planner like myself. They don't need it. This auntie and that auntie, they all just get involved, they do their thing. And I think the only big event would be the night before, besides the wedding. This is like people just, you know, it's the real money maker for bars, DJs, caterers, because people want to drink, dance and eat. It's Bollywood, it's explosive, it's just all the colors, it's everything in one. And I think maybe this is why people are so quiet on the ceremony day, or they're outside in the boot bar getting over their hangover because the night before was so big. Yeah, so it's just, you know, the community takes over. And then that brings us to the ceremony. The ceremony itself on the wedding day is the most complex one with the most abundant meaning and all the tradition. And it's called a viva, or it's one of the 16 sacraments of a Hindu life. It's meant to unite two people so firmly in energy, although they remain two separate bodies, they are connected spiritually. So obviously this differs from each wedding, but they basically have staples, and then with the addition or subtraction of different ceremonies, depending on your family and your specific custom. There's a lot that goes on, and learning these things took me a while. It wasn't overnight, and I really had to get familiar with each thing that happens. Something that I find particularly sentimental at the ceremony is the blessings portion, or Ashirvad, where the couple actually take blessings from their elders and then also their ancestors whom they've invited to the ceremony. Things that you may find entertaining, just bizarre or funny, the groom's shoes get stolen, like on purpose, by the bride's sisters in exchange for money. I'm not sure why, but yeah. And the bride has to fast. I don't know how she hasn't had like her 7th breakdown by the time she gets to the aisle, or just loses her ish in general. But yeah, so she has to fast on the day. And then something else, some families still practice dowry. This is similar to lobola, but the only thing is the bride's family pays the groom's family to look after the bride. WTF, right? And I don't mean Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then another thing is there's gold everywhere. So we got onto those ships for the gold back in the day. We got that gold, we're going to flaunt that gold. There's just gold everywhere. What we need to understand in the industry is that being a South African and an Indian is an identity of its own. It's, you know, we were not Indian and we're not South African. It's an amalgamation of beautiful explosions in stunning cultures coming together. I mean, the love for Bhangra is just as big as it is for Pansula, with the diverse range and tiny bits in between. I think Indian couples in South Africa are only recently starting to grasp the idea of a fairy tale wedding with more refined offerings in a nice venue, because we're so used to the community style of weddings, where it's a community hall, there's trestle tables, paper plates, paper cups, and it's the standard suppliers, which is why diversifying the Indian wedding industry is so important to me. There's so little sentimental value on the day usually. So the planner's role within the Indian Hindu wedding for me boils down to just communication, like it does within any industry. I think it's just communication, communication, communication. But the type of communication is also very important. A planner is a literal translator in this environment. And my first point of communication is communication between the bridal family, and note I'm saying family, not couple, so the bridal family and any venue or wedding supplier. And a planner will know what the service provider can and can't provide, the rules and regulations, and even just terms and conditions in general. It's like, for example, does the venue allow for a fire ritual to happen? So, and things get messy and very blurry, and having a planner to discuss these things upfront allows for that clear communication. Many rituals are very surreal for the couple, and it creates an energy within the bridal couple. So that's like a portion I would hate for my couples to not have any photos or videos to look back on, simply because the photographer was unaware of the importance of the actual ritual. So there's a need for us to create like a streamlined process, ensuring that the wedding supplier and the client have a smooth, happy, and just a happy experience without compromising on the quality, the content, or even the cost for either party. Then the second point is communication between couple and tradition. So many people don't know what happens in the actual wedding itself until it's time for them to get married, and then they're sitting there having to do rituals. And this is despite having the strong culture that we're usually brought up with at home. We don't know what happens in the weddings. So I often find myself coaching my couples and explaining to them the relevance of each item in the ceremony. And then it also helps me keep the balance between the older generations and then the younger generation that's getting married now, who have logic and they question as to why we're doing certain things. This is something that I really do pride myself in as a planner, because there aren't many planners that get this involved in the tradition itself or the translation of it. Then the third point of communication is between the planner and the couple. So this is standard across all weddings, I think. We all know that the planner plays advocate, advisor, therapist, teacher, accountant, just friend, and then eventually even family. And having your planner invested so much in your special day, and understanding the complexities that go with the wedding is something that goes a long way in your overall wedding experience. Planners can get involved. They know which part of the ceremony who belongs and who to replace who with, because things get political. They do. So if I've lost you on the way here, I'm Prashani of Paheli Weddings and Events. I completed my BTech in hospitality at the University of Johannesburg. And then I went on to the Advanced Styling and Planning course at the SA School of Weddings. So Paheli Weddings and Events have been in operation now for just under 4 years, planning and coordinating Hindu traditional weddings. And we believe that growing up in South Africa, people are embracing their heritage more than ever. And fusion weddings it's an emerging trend. It was a trend, and it is going to remain a trend for a long time. So we just made it our mission to assist in planning traditional weddings while still finding the balance between modern day elegance and chic. Trends and changing times. I think what I found during my time within the industry, weddings are getting smaller in size, more intimate, and because couples want to know exactly who is at their wedding, and so they want to interact with their guests. And I think couples they're definitely finding an identity of their own outside of the religious or culture barriers. I think going forward, especially after this pandemic, couples will come back to what actually matters to them. They will come back to what feels like home, and they'll want to include the people closest to them. The marriage ceremony will, I think, find a better place or have more importance to the couples. And I personally find that very rewarding, because it makes our work in the wedding industry more meaningful. Also, I think couples will hold on to what's familiar, basically. And and I think not only the couple, but everybody will want to celebrate again, especially after this pandemic, and to appreciate the time we have with each other without taking these things for granted. I think that wraps up the gist of what an Indian wedding is, the format, and what it is that I do. So I just want to thank you. It's with immense gratitude and grace that I'm here today, and just for giving me the chance to share the little bit of knowledge that I do have. It took me an enormous amount of courage and to be here opening up and speaking about these relevant topics, I feel. So thank you for sharing this journey with me. I am open to any questions or discussions you may have. Please do contact me at Paheli Weddings and Events, because I strongly believe about expanding, diversifying, and unifying the industry for more inclusive celebration of of a marriage between all the cultures. And I look forward to chatting to you and sharing more experiences together in the future. Thank you.
She is a well-known stylist that brings